All right, so we have day 2 of absolute values, and today we're doing solving absolute values. So day 1, we talked about graphing, what they are, what they look like, and so today we are going to solve them. We've got 4 steps, real easy, 4 steps. Step 1 is we're going to get the absolute value part by itself. So the only thing that can be there in order for us to be able to solve it is those braces, and it needs to equal some number, okay? But like on this one, I have the absolute value of m minus 3, but then I have a plus 2. I don't want that plus 2. My absolute value piece has to be by itself in order for me to solve it. So how would I get that plus 2 to go away? I would subtract 2 from both sides. And so I get the absolute value of m minus 3 is equal to 4. Absolute values by itself, step 1. Step 2, you're going to create 2 separate equations where one is going to equal a positive number and one is going to equal a negative number. And the number is the number that's there. So I have m minus 3 is equal to 4. So one just stays the way that it is. And the other one we're going to create a negative number. And the reason that is because your absolute value, that piece that goes into the absolute value, could be a positive 4 or it could be a negative 4. An absolute value of negative 4 is equal to 4. And the absolute value of positive 4 is also equal to 4. So you have to make one equal a positive 4 and one equal a negative 4, or whatever number is there. If it's 10, it's 10 and negative 10. Then step 3, you're going to use opposite operations to solve. You're just going to solve for m. So on the left side, how would I solve for m? I would add 3 to both sides, and I get m is equal to 7. On the other side, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. It's the same operation, but you are going to get a different number, and I get m is equal to negative 1. So step 4 is you are going to have 2 separate answers. And they're going to be different, more than likely, they're going to be different numbers. Because when you add 4 to 3, you get 7. When you add 3 to negative 4, you get negative 1. So most of the time, the numbers are different. Sometimes one's positive and one's negative. Sometimes they're both negative. Sometimes they're both positive. It just kind of depends on what number is there and then what you're doing to the numbers after you're solving for, in this case, m or x or whatever it is. There is a little asterisk down here, and it's an important one, that absolute values cannot equal a negative number. So when you get that absolute value piece by itself and it equals a negative number, you're done. That can't happen because you can't have an absolute value equal a negative, because an absolute value is a distance, and there's no way a distance can be negative. So if that happens, we can be done. It is almost too easy. It is. So example 2, my absolute value, step 1, get the absolute value by itself. Do I have anything outside of those absolute value brackets, braces, whatever you want to call them? No, it's just the equals. So I can go ahead and start making my 2 separate equations, where one gets to stay and equal a positive number, but the other one I'm going to make equal a negative number. I am not changing anything inside that absolute value. That absolute value is staying where it is. It is 3x plus 2. That's not changing signs. The equals is changing signs. So I'm going to solve. I'm going to subtract 2. 8 minus 2 is 6. Finally get x by itself, so I divide by 3, and so I get x is equal to 2. Other side, I'm going to follow the same process, subtract 2, divide by 3. Yeah, I'm going to get a fraction, but that's okay. Fraction's just a division we just don't feel like doing. It's fine. Leave it as a fraction. Definitely don't divide that one because you're going to get a repeating decimal. Example 3, I have absolute value of 7 minus 2x is equal to negative 10. My absolute value is by itself, so normally I would split it. But remember that an absolute value, when left alone, cannot equal a negative number. It's impossible because an absolute value is a distance. There's no way a distance can be negative. So this particular answer, we're done. There's no solution. Now, you can only make that distinction when your absolute value is by itself. If there is anything to still add or subtract or multiply or divide on the outside, you cannot say no solution, because you don't really know if it's still going to stay a negative number. This particular example, though, the absolute value is by itself. It equals the negative number. We're done. If I were to try to split this, I'd keep one negative and then make one positive. That doesn't make sense. So if you ever get one like this and it equals a negative number, when your absolute value is by itself, you can just call it and say no solution.